Family is supposed to protect you. But that night, mine stood still and watched me burn. Why don't you just disappear? My sister screamed, shaking with rage. She stood in the center of our living room, hair wild, mascara streaking, fury aimed straight at me like I was the match that ruined her perfect life. And my parents? They didn't stop her. My father crossed his arms. My mother didn't blink when she said, "You're a curse to this family. Get out and never come back." And just like that, I became invisible. No one asked for my side. No one asked how I felt. No one asked why my sister's engagement collapsed, or why her employer flagged her for misconduct, or why I happened to be in the room when it all came crashing down.
No.
They chose their narrative, the one where I ruin things. The one where I exist only to absorb blame and stay quiet while doing it. So I didn't argue. I didn't cry, or scream, or beg. I walked upstairs, packed a small bag, and walked out the door. Quietly. That's how it always was in this house. Screaming wins. Silence disappears. As I stepped outside, the winter air hit me like a slap. My hands were trembling, but my mind was finally still. I didn't have a plan. Just a vow. Never again. Never again would I live in a place where my presence was treated like a problem. Never again would I shrink so others could shine. Never again would I carry guilt for being less convenient than their golden child. I found a friend who let me sleep on her couch. Got a job at a local print shop. Worked nights building freelance design projects from my old laptop. I ate quietly. I earned quietly. And I built something in the dark, slowly, but fiercely. Because when your own family casts you out, you learn fast how to become your own rescue. That was 2.5 years ago. And this morning, everything changed. I woke up in my apartment, the one I bought in cash last fall, to 14 missed calls from numbers I knew by heart, but hadn't dialed in years.
Mom.
Dad. Even my sister. Text after text poured in. "Layla, please call. It's serious. We need to talk." Something's happened. I didn't panic. I made coffee. I sat at the kitchen counter and scrolled through the messages like I was reading a book I'd already memorized. Because I knew what happened. The news broke last night. My name. My face. My story. The outcast daughter who created a multi-million-dollar design software and sold her stake for a staggering 7 figures. Headline. From couch to CEO, how one disowned daughter changed everything. They didn't know what I had been building. They didn't know the curse they cast out had quietly become their only hope.
And now?
They were calling. Desperate. Suddenly remembering I existed. My name is Layla. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Because the night they told me to disappear, they gave me my freedom. And now that I've made something of it, they want it back. But I'm not the quiet girl they left behind. Not anymore. You don't become invisible all at once. It starts slow, with your name being the one they forget to mention, your birthday being the one they remember late, your voice being the one they talk over. That was my childhood. My sister, Alyssa, was the light, the performer, the achiever, the daughter with sparkle and tantrums and attention. I was the afterthought. I learned early how to make myself useful instead of loved. I cleaned without being asked, ate quickly and quietly, got straight A's and didn't dare celebrate too loudly. When Alyssa got into cheerleading, she had custom uniforms and 2 private coaches.
When I got into computer science,
my father laughed and said, "That's not a career, that's a phase." My mother told relatives I was just trying to find myself. When Alyssa's boyfriend broke up with her in high school, the whole house dimmed in mourning. She stayed home for a week. Got flowers, ice cream, therapy. When I failed my first math final from exhaustion and cried in my room, my mom opened the door just to say, "You're not falling apart over a test, are you? Be strong." That phrase, be strong. I started to hate it, because in my house, be strong meant suffer quietly so your sister doesn't have to feel uncomfortable. They poured into Alyssa, and I poured into silence. The gap grew with us. She got her first car at 17. I took the bus to work. She was late for every family dinner, and they waited. I came early, and they forgot I was there. But it wasn't just favoritism. It was deletion. They acted like Alyssa was the whole painting, and I was just the blank space around her. And the irony? I never envied her spotlight. I just wanted my own little lamp in the corner. Something soft, steady, enough. I thought, maybe if I became impressive enough, quietly successful, responsibly good, I'd get something. A nod, a touch of pride, a "we're proud of you." So I overachieved. Graduated early.
Started working in design.
Picked up coding skills online. Taught myself UI/UX while everyone else was out drinking. And still, nothing. I became the family tech fix girl. Layla, can you help Dad with his email? Layla, can you fix the Wi-Fi? Layla, make yourself useful. You're good with that nerd stuff. That was the extent of it. So when the house exploded with drama last year, when Alyssa's engagement fell apart, when screenshots of her bad behavior leaked, when her employer placed her on probation, I was in the room. And even though I had nothing to do with it, she pointed at me. You're jealous of me. You always were. Admit it. You ruin everything. And the rest? Well, you already know. My parents didn't defend me. They agreed. I didn't scream. I just stood there, absorbing the same silence I'd always been given, but this time, I walked out with it. And when that door closed behind me, so did my loyalty, because I finally understood. It was never my job to fix what they broke. It was my job to save myself from the wreckage. And I did. They thought I'd come crawling back. That I'd be gone for a few weeks, maybe a couple of months, then return, humbled and desperate, begging for shelter or forgiveness or crumbs of validation. But they never stopped to ask what I could do if I had even an ounce of peace. The first week was the hardest. I stayed on my friend Tasha's couch. She didn't ask questions, just gave me a pillow and a key. I'd sit up at night in the dark, laptop balanced on my knees, fingers aching as I tapped through mock-up screens, coding blocks, and rejected freelance gigs. I was building something, but I didn't know what it was yet. All I knew was that if I couldn't make a life for myself now, I never would. I kept my day job at the print shop. Minimum wage. Dusty.
Quiet.
But it paid just enough for instant noodles and cold coffee. Nights? That's when the real work happened. I sold logo packs on design forums. Built websites for small Etsy businesses. Offered free UI audits just to get portfolio pieces. And then one night at 3:12 a.m., something clicked. It was a layout I had mocked up 100 times. But this time, I didn't make it for a client. I made it for myself. A wireframe for a digital platform, something simple, clean, intuitive, that would let users customize interfaces without needing to code. A UI skin tool for small creators. One-click designs. Seamless branding. Drag-and-drop functions. I called it Glowform, short for Make Your Presence Shine. I launched the beta in a Discord group of indie creators. 20 users signed up in the first week. Then 50. Then 200. One girl posted a TikTok tutorial using it. Overnight, the site crashed from the traffic spike. That was the first time I cried, not from sadness. From hope. I fixed the backend, rebuilt the server, added new features. By month 4, I had 12,000 users. By the end of the year, a venture firm emailed me. They wanted a meeting. 2 months later, they invested $350,000. 6 months after that, I was sitting in a glass-paneled office with my own team, my own logo on the wall, and my own paycheck bigger than anything I'd imagined growing up in that silence. The girl who left home with a single backpack was now the CEO of her own future. And while they were busy pretending I didn't exist, I was building something they couldn't ignore. I never posted about it. Never gloated. Because this wasn't about revenge. It was about resurrection. One day, I got a message from my old high school teacher, the only person who ever believed in me back then. Just saw your interview on Founders Weekly. I always knew you'd build something. That was the day I stopped looking over my shoulder. Because I didn't need them to see me. I needed me to see me.
And now?
I saw a woman who made it. Not despite being discarded, but because she finally stopped waiting to be chosen. It wasn't supposed to go viral. That was never the plan. I built Glowform to help creators, not to be seen by millions, not to become a brand, not to end up on news feeds. But then the article dropped. The tech star you've never heard of, from disowned to disruptor. A journalist found my old Medium blog, the one I wrote anonymously back when I was still couch surfing and figuring out life. She reached out, curious about the woman behind the software quietly changing the face of UI design. I said yes to the interview, hesitantly. I didn't expect it to spread. But within days it did. Tech forums, business pages, even local news stations picked it up. Abandoned by her family at 24, Layla Monroe built a company now valued at over $12 million. Her family told her to disappear. Now, they can't scroll without seeing her face. I didn't name them. Didn't need to. The silence I left behind was doing all the work. By the time my face was trending on LinkedIn, they had to notice. And they did. I knew because the text started trickling in. At first, just from old classmates. OMG, is this you? Didn't your sister used to call you a ghost? LOL. Who's haunting who now? Then came the less amusing ones, anonymous numbers. Voicemails I didn't play. Calls I didn't answer. And then I saw it. My mother shared the article. She posted it on Facebook with a caption. So proud of my daughter. She's worked so hard. A true inspiration. My daughter. The same woman who called me a curse. Who told me to get out and never come back. Now pretending she raised me with love and Wi-Fi. Comments flooded in.
Wow.
She's yours? She's incredible. You must be such a proud mom. Where has she been hiding all these years? Hiding? I wasn't hiding. I was healing, building, becoming. And while she bathed in borrowed pride, the walls of their world started cracking. Because that same week, Alyssa lost her job. A whistleblower exposed misconduct. Screenshots leaked. The same fiery meltdown energy she used on me, she'd turned on a coworker, publicly. The video hit Twitter like a grenade. People weren't sympathetic. They started digging. Her old Golden Girl image collapsed in days. Brands unfollowed her. Sponsorships dropped. Her side hustle tanked. And while her fall spiraled, my platform soared. One of the investors who turned her down in college just emailed me to ask if I'd consider joining their board. I didn't accept, but I sent a note back. Thank you for recognizing something they never did. The silence that followed? Sweeter than any check. Because now the world saw me. Not the version they tried to hide, but the one I grew into when they let me go. And that fire they tried to put out? It was lighting up everything. Their lies. Their hypocrisy. And most of all, their need. Because now, they needed me. But I didn't need them. Not anymore. The phone lit up again. 14 missed calls. 1 from my father. 3 from my mother. 10 from Alyssa. I stared at the screen like it belonged to someone else. Like this life, this moment, wasn't mine. But it was. And I wasn't surprised. Because once Alyssa's scandal broke, and the world stopped seeing her as perfect, the panic began. And where do narcissists run when their masks slip? To the one they buried. I made a cup of coffee. Let it steep slowly. Watched the screen keep buzzing. Then the text came. Layla, please. Call us. You don't understand how bad it's gotten. We're family. Can we talk? Your sister is in trouble. She's sorry. We all are. That last line? It almost made me laugh. Now they're sorry. Now that the Golden Girl's image shattered. Now that the daughter they exiled is the only one whose name means anything. Now that I was worth something. But when I was sleeping on Tasha's couch, when I was burning out on freelance gigs and living on canned soup, they didn't care. They didn't call. They didn't even wonder. They told me to disappear, and I did. But now that I've reappeared on screens they can't stop watching, suddenly I'm valuable. I finally opened one of the voicemails. Just one. My mother's voice, brittle, trying too hard to sound soft. Layla, sweetheart. We made mistakes. I see that now. We just want to talk. Please don't shut us out forever. You're still our daughter. Still. As if the word daughter means anything after what they did. I didn't respond, but I thought about all the years I begged for that voice to say something kind, something human. And now that it had, it was just too late. The next day, a package arrived at my office. No return address. Inside, a necklace. My grandmother's. She always said I'd inherit it one day. It skipped my mom, and she promised it would be mine. But when I left, they gave it to Alyssa. Now, they wanted to offer it back like a peace treaty. I held it up to the light. Beautiful, but not priceless. Just like me, they only remembered it when it could fix something broken. I put it back in the box, wrote a note, sent it to their address via courier. The note said, "I don't need anything from you. You made your choice. Now live in it." No signature. They didn't need one. That night, I finally texted Alyssa. Just one line. "You told me to disappear. You didn't say how far." She read it, didn't reply. And I knew, in that moment, she felt it, the weight of all the years she stood behind my mother while I was being erased. She wanted to scream at me now, beg, but I'd already vanished from her reach. Because forgiveness isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just freedom, paid in silence. I knew they'd come. It was only a matter of time. People like them don't handle being ignored well, especially not by the one they cast out. Especially not now that the world sees me. So when my assistant buzzed the intercom that morning, her voice uncertain, I already knew. "Layla, there's a woman downstairs. She says she's your mother. Your father's with her. And your sister too." I didn't answer right away. I just stood at the window of my office, 30 floors above them, and looked down at the three figures huddled outside the glass doors of a building they never dreamed I'd walk into, let alone own. My mother looked like she hadn't slept. My father was pacing. Alyssa wore sunglasses, like shame could be hidden behind designer frames. I took a sip of coffee, and I felt nothing. No rage, no heartbreak, just distance. I picked up the phone and said to my assistant, "Have security keep them in the lobby. Don't let them upstairs. I'll send someone down." I reached into my desk drawer and pulled out an envelope I had prepared weeks ago. I knew this day would come. I just didn't know how calm I'd be when it did. I handed the envelope to my assistant. "Give them this. Nothing else. And then ask security to walk them out." She nodded. 10 minutes later, I got the call. They left. Quietly. "Your sister cried." I hung up and sat down, letting the weight of it settle. Not guilt, clarity. Because inside that envelope was a photo. A photo of me for years ago, curled up in the back seat of my car, using my coat as a blanket. Hair messy, eyes tired, laptop on my lap. The caption scrawled on the back in my handwriting. "This is what you made. This is what you left behind." That was it. No reply needed. No scene made. Just the truth. And they could do with it what they wanted. Later that day, Alyssa posted something on her story, just a black screen with the words, "Sometimes the people you need most become strangers. Sometimes it's your own fault." Progress? Maybe. But it didn't change anything. Because they didn't show up because they loved me. They showed up because they finally realized I had become someone they couldn't control, someone with power. But I didn't need their tears now. I needed them to live with the echo of the silence they handed me first. And maybe, just maybe, the image of their daughter, sleeping in a car while they ate dinner and laughed upstairs, would stick with them longer than their empty apologies ever could. I stood at my office window one more time. Below, the city moved on. So did I. Because you can beg for forgiveness. You can knock on every door you once slammed shut. But eventually, the locks change. And the person on the other side doesn't need to open it anymore. They called me a curse. They blamed me for everything, from broken engagements to their own bitterness. They threw that word around like it was a permanent stain, like I'd be branded by it forever. But the funny thing about curses? They only work if you believe in them. And I stopped believing the moment I built my first prototype. Now, that curse is a crown. After the article went viral, the calls didn't stop from universities, women's groups, young developers, single moms, first-gen students. girls who had been pushed out of their homes and told to figure it out.
They all saw themselves in me.
Not the polished version with clean lines and a media feature, but the girl who slept in her car. The one who disappeared so she could finally become whole. So I launched something new. Not a tech product. A foundation. Glow Forward. A startup fund, mentorship network, and safe housing initiative for young women who were cut off, cast out, or labeled a burden by their own families. We help them land on their feet, not just with lectures and checklists, but with real tools. Housing grants, laptop donations, therapy stipends, coding boot camp sponsorships. We built a network of shelters that partner with co-working spaces. A place to sleep, a place to build, a place to rise. And it's working. I watched one girl go from sleeping at a bus station to speaking on stage at a tech conference in under a year. Another coded her first mobile game and sold it. Another started a podcast. Cursed and Crowned. I cried when I heard the title, because it's not just my story anymore. It's ours. One night, I gave a TED Talk. Small venue, intimate crowd. I told the full story from the night I walked out to the moment my name landed on Forbes' top 30 founders to watch. I ended with this. They said I was a curse, but really I was just the mirror. And when they couldn't handle their own reflection, they tried to shatter me. The room went silent. Then it rose to its feet. Afterward, a woman came up to me, probably in her 50s, tears in her eyes. I was the Layla of my family, she said. But I never left. Thank you for showing me it's not too late to choose peace. I hugged her, because I knew that ache. The ache of waiting for love from people who only hand you blame. But not anymore. I don't chase peace. I build it. And for the first time in my life, I belong somewhere. Not because they made space for me, but because I carved it out myself. With grace. With grit. With silence sharper than any scream I ever swallowed. 3 months ago, I bought a house. Not for me. I already had my own. This one was different. Brick, 2-story, old porch. Familiar. It was the house I grew up in. The one I was thrown out of. The one they called ours when I was paying half the bills and still eating shame at the table. After my parents fell behind on the mortgage, after their financial support systems dried up with my silence, the property went into pre-foreclosure. I bought it anonymously, through a shell company, paid in full. No signatures needed, but mine. They moved out last week. Alyssa posted about it. Sometimes life falls apart, but we rebuild. Still no mention of me. That's fine, because what they don't know is what the house is now. I remodeled it. Not with marble counters or fancy floors. I turned it into a transitional home for girls who had nowhere to go. 6 bedrooms. A shared workspace in the garage. A garden where the shame used to sit. We renamed it the second door. Because sometimes you have to close the first one, hard, before you ever find your place. Each room has a journal on the nightstand. The first page in every single one reads, "You are not their burden. You are not their failure. You are not their shame. You are the story they were too small to contain." This week, I visited to check on renovations. The paint was still drying in the hallway. A girl, maybe 17, peeked out of her room with a shy smile. She was holding the journal. She said, "Is this your story?" I nodded. She asked, "Do you ever miss them?" I paused. Not because I didn't know, but because I finally did. "I miss the idea of them," I said, "but not the people they really were." She smiled, like she understood too well. I left the house that day with sunlight on my face and nothing in my chest but peace. Because they thought I was a curse. But I was never their shame. I was their mirror. And when they saw their own cruelty reflected back, they couldn't stand it, so they smashed it. But here's the thing about breaking a mirror. It doesn't stop the reflection. It just sharpens it. And now, that reflection is everywhere. In the girls finding shelter. In the women building tech empires from living rooms. In the whispers of daughters who stopped begging to be chosen and chose themselves instead. I don't talk about them anymore. Not out of pain. Out of peace. Because I used to think I needed closure. What I really needed was distance. And I got it. Not by disappearing. By becoming undeniable. They called me a curse. But I was the truth they couldn't bury.
And now?
I walk freely through the door they told me to never come back through. Not to prove anything. Just to make room for the next girl who needs a place to rise.